Looks to come inside and find one, a goal, and find the back of the net for Perth.
And the Azzurri have come back from 2 goals down to tie it up.
Cue the celebrations for the Azzurri.
Episode 7 of the Perth SC Podcast, coming to you from Dorrien Gardens, the Perth San Siro. Big week for the club, plenty going on, plenty to sift through for the next 45 minutes or so. Blayne Treadgold is my name. Benny Stroud's with us. Benny, big good afternoon to you again, mate, on this Thursday.
Good afternoon. Good to be back in the studio.
Yeah, plenty going on, mate, back in the studio. You keep saying that. We just find ourselves a little corner here at Dorrien Gardens, usually with some beautiful surroundings and, chew the fat on what's happening around the club. Big reminder, Benny, as we usually need to do is, just remind people how they can keep spreading the word of the Perth SC Podcast, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get all your podcasts. And we are now on YouTube. So more access to the Perth SC Podcast means more access to the Azzurri and, plenty of ways to get around the club at the moment.
We're making moves.
We're making moves.
In different waves.
Moving on in the world. Mate, we do need to address the results across the weekend. A 4-1 loss to Inglewood. A really, really tough day at the office.
Yeah, really tough. It's not a fun one to review, but honestly, we did a bit of video analysis on the game, and look, the first 27 minutes were absolutely phenomenal from the boys. To be fair, if you watch the game back, the way we play, the way we implement what Kenny's asking us to do was phenomenal. To be fair, and to get the 1-0 lead early. Then obviously following events, unfortunate. Something that's football at the end of the day, right? And then when you lose a man, it's tough, and when you're up against it, you just got to adapt quickly, and that's something that we didn't do, and Inglewood did. So tough. But look, it puts us in a situation where we've got to fight, we've got to keep battling, and just we've got to really dig our teeth in now.
Take us behind the scenes of a video analysis session. How's all that, I guess, go? Is it just Kenny up there with a bit of a laser pointer and everything else? Or is it, is there genuine input from everyone? Or, does Tommy or Stuart take a bit of a role in that? How does that all work out?
No, Kenny runs it himself. Yeah, he's very experienced, obviously, in that analytical sense. And we, for this week in particular, we honestly just watched it back, and we just increased the speed, and we watched that first 27 minutes just in about 20. We stopped it when things were phenomenal, and a few mistakes in there as well, so stop and kind of pinpoint those. But honestly, he likes to show a lot of the good things just to reinforce what we do and keep it positive and keep things moving. So it's good to see those pictures, especially as a player, when maybe in the game you don't realize how good it was, because you come off the park at the end of the day, and your head's down, and you're gutted, and you don't actually remember those highlights. And I think it's quite common with a lot of athletes, right? You remember more of the mistakes and the negatives in a game than you do the positives. So just to have that reinforcement, actually go over it and say, look, like I'm capable of doing that, or this picture was good. What if I did this option? And Kenny's good at that too, and just reminding and asking about those other options too.
Is there genuine one-on-one feedback with the players, or is it generally just done as a group?
Yeah, in those sessions it's done as a group, but different times, it's individual. On the training pitch in certain moments, it's individual at the same time. So he's got a good balance of it, to be fair, yeah.
No, very good. And I guess training, back in training this week, how's all that been ticking over? A few cold mornings?
Yeah, I swear it's getting colder and colder, but no, it's good. I think, it's one of those where you've got to accept what's happened, and you've just got to face the reality. I think that we're in a position now where people can look at things and you can throw a blanket over of comfort, where I think it's if you want to relate it to anything in the world of football, you can look at the England camp, right, and how Gareth Southgate or the team gets scrutinised. The reality is that you can't throw this toxic positivity blanket over what's going on. You've got to accept the reality of what's happening, what's in front of you, and look, we're not in a great position. It's just the facts. Why throw something over and say there's no pressure, like, et cetera, et cetera? the fact is that there is pressure. We're under the pump and we're not in a good position. So how do we accept that? How do we get together as a group, the young players, the senior players? What do we have to do to now go out and change it? That's exactly what we have to face.
Has there been a conversation around the ladder position and about maybe there needs to be some urgency coming to that? Has that been spoken about?
No, I don't think it needs to be spoken about because it's evident, right? The feelings there, like especially after the game at the weekend where we know where Inglewood's bottom of the table and points are on offer. It's a separator, or it's an opportunity for us to get 3 and then move up the table. So I don't think that the conversation has to be had. It's just a feeling that within the group and. Yeah, you've just got to, as I said, accept that and move on.
With this situation, and there's been some injuries that have taken their toll, it does mean some opportunities for younger players to come through and really kind of grab their opportunity by the scruff of the neck. And another youngster we saw on the park on the weekend, Jacob Rossi, got a bit of a start. Got some minutes up front.
Yeah, his debut for the first team, I believe. So yeah, congrats to him. I think he's been in really good form for the under-20s all year and scored. Is it 9-10 goals, I think. Yep. So he's been doing well in the 20s and, deserves a shot. So fair play to him. And I think one other player that's been standout is Macca, and obviously starting at the weekend as well. Yep. And he shows grit. Like, he works hard and puts his head down and just gets to work. And I rate it highly. Just
on Jacob, he's got that really kind of centre forward physique about him. He's a strong young lad, isn't he?
Yeah, he's strong. He's strong. He holds the ball up well. He makes good runs in behind, and look, he can finish goals as well. So yeah, like he deserves his chance, that's for sure. And obviously we'll see going forward if he gets more game time, if he can take those chances. And look, that's where players can make their careers, right, in terms of showing up and doing their job. Yep. See what happens.
Certainly one to watch as we look towards the future of the Perth Soccer Club. Let's talk about the good stuff, because it's the girls that are absolutely flying the Azzurri flag at the moment. Another 4-0 win over the weekend at the Sam Kerr Football Centre over the NTC. Sam Mathers got the Azzurri off to a great start, and Ella Lincoln, she's got to be nailed on for the player of the season thus far. A 12-minute, I think it was, hat-trick on the weekend, just to top things off, as if it couldn't get any better for her.
Yeah, we're just talking about strikers and scoring goals and doing their job, and Ella's been on flames. We've said it before, and it's the consistency, right, that she keeps showing up week in, week out, and performing for the girls, which is amazing. And look, they're in that habit, they're in that flow, and it's really good to see that it is that consistent form. They're obviously connecting well with each other, and they're fighting, and then those results are coming at the same time. So yeah, it's great, and they're certainly flying that flag. She'll be up there for Golden Boot and for Player of the Season without a doubt.
Gold medal. Yep. No, very much looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season plays out for Ella. I'm sure she's not getting too far ahead of herself, but I mean, if you're a fan of women's football, and particularly Western Australian women's football, she's got to be one of the next cabs off the rank as far as moving up to that next level, A-League W level, and seeing what that might look like to test herself.
100%. I mean, she's representing herself in the club well. Like, I mean, you keep getting those stats and keep proving week in, week out the consistency, and that's what coaches look for, it's what teams look for, and that's what they rely on at the end of the day. So, yeah, 100% she'll be sticking her hand up for that.
Yep, they can't ignore you if you keep playing the way that she is at the moment. Been a few other things going on. A bit later on, we're going to speak to Glenn Hutcheson. He's been around the club for many years, on and off. He's got an interesting story. He's obviously, we'll see him week after week down here, whether it's putting on the fluoro and acting as a ground marshal, or on the gate getting all the takings, or sitting on the board and making some decisions at the top end. So I mean, when you think about a football club, it's all about the people that really make up a club and make it what it is, such as we see here at Perth Soccer Club.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to diving into his story more, and hearing his insight to the club, not just this year, but in previous years too. So yeah, as we've talked about how special this place is, and it's the people that are involved, and I think that's how much they care about this club, and that's what makes it so amazing. So yeah, looking forward to diving into that story.
Yeah, a few other things to get through. We'll have a bit of fun in the next section. We might just talk a little bit about football in general, Benny, because I'd be interested to gather some of your thoughts as a Kiwi on the state of Australian and New Zealand football, because I guess it is a bit of a coefficient as far as that goes. So, we might just delve into a few more things. We'll take a quick break and we'll jump into it after this. Blayne Treadgold, Benny Stroud. This is the Perth Soccer Club podcast. Plenty to talk about. We just went through the results there, Benny, and we'll speak to Glenn Hutcheson in a few minutes. We mentioned that everyone's got a bit of a story about how they found themselves at Dorrien Gardens in a way. We've heard from you and many other guests. So I thought I might just, without being too self-indulgent, I guess just let people know a little bit about my story. And I guess I came from a bit of an Aussie rules background growing up. And then as I kind of grew up, I grew up in a very multicultural area, and whether there was the Italians or the Greeks, or a little bit later on, it was the Serbians, the Croatians, Bosnians, who I went to school with, a lot of those guys who unfortunately came out after a war situation. So I grew up in a very multicultural area down there in Morley, and as I kind of got through my latter years, I found a real affinity with the game. I found a real affinity with, as someone who's always had a little bit of a leaning towards very diverse cultures, and I thought football was, I don't think you get any more diverse than football. So it was an interesting kind of upbringing, and an interesting kind of transition from coming from a very, very Anglo-Australian, quote-unquote, background into much more diverse. And I guess that was really helped along by Perth Glory when they came out. Perth Glory was, of course, a club that prided themselves on not really having any mono-ethnic affiliations like many of the clubs did at the time, but that we're a club for the city. We're playing in the National League, and that's just the way it was. And many people here at Perth will get that. Many people here at Perth Soccer Club have had a little bit of an affiliation with the Glory as well. So when they came on board, it was, for an Aussie kid like me that wasn't from that background, it was quite an eye-opener when we started to get into the Glory. And I guess a little bit later on, started to take a real interest in the game, started to write on the game. I think it was Jonathan Cook who actually gave me one of my first opportunities just to write some match reports for the local leagues when he was at Football West, which I'm very, very appreciative of. And I think that kind of set along a little bit of a fire, if you like, and started to get into broadcasting and everything else like that.
So was it what actually attracted you to the game itself though? Was it watching and being a spectator, or was it actually trying to get involved itself, or what was the actual attraction of football?
My first memories of football, even just as a casual observer, was probably watching the Socceroos. And it's really, really strange because as someone who isn't a huge fan of patriotism and nationalism, I think that the whole Socceroos kind of thing, it was almost, they were the team, the national team, if you like, that represented the ethnics and the outcasts at the time. They're all made up of immigrants. That was probably the most reflective team that we had of the country, if you like. You had English, Scots, Yugoslavians, that was what it came through. But I guess my first real memories when I first felt something for the game was probably, and I hate to say it, was 1997 against Iran when Australia was 2-0 up going into the second leg and unfortunately didn't get through to the 98 World Cup. So that was probably the first real kind of...
The heartbreak got you.
It was, yeah, well, I mean, I've always been proud to be Australian, but not overly kind of nationalistic and everything else like that. I think I've got a little bit of a different idea of what I think Australia is or what it should be compared to just, chucking on a flag and, that kind of thing. That's probably a different conversation for another day. As I suggest there, it was probably around that time that I started to tweak as a young bloke.
So then how did you get involved with Perth SC?
Well, that was an interesting one because I think Jason Marocchi at the time was trying to just enhance the match day kind of feeling and the feel, and I guess just really kind of connect with the fans and the supporters, the long-term supporters. And I think it was a evolution of just which way the local clubs are going. They wanted to be a little bit more professional and everything else like that. So when I kind of got a bit of a phone call from Jason and said, hey, do you want to jump on and and do this. This is what we're looking for. I jumped at it. And of course, I always knew about the history of the club and how successful they were from writing on the club and everything else like that. And in the previous years prior to that, I'd put myself through radio school, so I had a little bit of an idea on how this thing should work. So I guess it was just a natural progression, if you like.
Was Perth SC one of the innovating clubs to start implementing that kind of stuff?
I believe it is.
Yeah.
I think it was probably the first. I don't recall going to any other real matches that you had that level of match day experience, if you like. It wasn't just what was happening on the field. There was a little bit of, all right, let's get some music happening. Let's get a bit of goal music. Let's get a bit of a feeling into the club and get people walking away from their day and going, hey, that was a really good day. I enjoyed myself. So it was more that side of it. And I think Perth's always been an innovative club. I think they've always prided themselves on being that leader, being that one step ahead of various other clubs across WA.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool and something that Australia football does. I think they've done it for a wee while, but it's like actually streaming the games, right? I think it's so important. It's such a cool thing. So if local fans can't make it down, they can tune in online. They can watch the games. I think that's so important to have that support and that opportunity to follow those teams. But also, like, for myself, right, I'm thinking selfishly, like, my parents want to watch from over in New Zealand and they can't come to the games. So yeah, they get to tune in, and Dad's probably stuck on the couch on a Saturday night watching it at 7 p.m. New Zealand
yelling
time.
At the TV.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I can tell he's bloody abusing me from there. But no, it's just offering words of encouragement. But no, it's something that's really important. And I think it just offers that extra experience, right? Like, if you're in the stands and you see a camera following them around, you're like, okay, this is a good level. And I think it just showcases the quality of players all over the country at the same time, right? Which is really important, and it's cool for those kids who want to step up to the next level, play on TV, get used to it. As we were talking about earlier with watching games back and the analysis, so important too. So yeah, it offers that extra experience.
It was interesting that you say that, because when the whole conversation around streaming games and everything else and moving more into that digital age, if you like, over the last decade, there was that whole argument of, will people still get out to the games? Will they just sit at home on the couch and not put money over the bar or come in for a bowl of pasta or something like that? So there is a fine line to be found. And I think we've probably found that, is that if people are available and you're putting on a good match day experience, that far outweighs sitting on your couch and watching it at home.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
I don't like you still get fans turn up to the games and chant. Like, I remember the Western Knights game here, and like even the game at Freo, I think it was one of the first games I came back. I was getting abused by a bunch of kids on the side. I'm like, you can't replace that. So you still need it in the game, which is wicked. And as I was just saying, like, if kids want to like progress into big levels, they're obviously going to be in front of more and more crowds. Like, I was just talking to a mate who's still playing in Finland. He moved to a different club, and they had a derby playing in front of 6K, which is like the next step again, and then just moving on and on. So yeah, it's an important aspect of football, and like we were saying earlier, it's an international game, right? You get it all over the world. You're watching the Euros at the minute. You're watching Copa America. Unbelievable. Like America's just played at the Kansas City Chiefs stadium, and it's absolutely packed out, an unbelievable stadium usually for NFL, but wow, honestly, it must have been such an atmosphere there too.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And I don't think, as someone who's kind of, as I suggested a bit earlier, kind of come through those supporter ranks before I moved on to, I guess, a little bit of a career in the media, there's nothing better than being on the terrace. There's nothing better than that. I really love that kind of sense of tribalism and everything else that comes along with it. I find it fascinating, the whole anthropology behind it and the reason for it. And then, you could really kind of strip it back to, the human need for connection and for belonging and everything else like that. I find that hugely interesting. But I tell you what, a good day on the terrace is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't like having too many experiences there, because I'd rather be on the pitch.
Sure.
So
I was never that talented, mate. So I had to go for something else.
Yeah, well, it just makes it an experience though. It's so good. Like when you do have people there who care and you can hear it. It adds to the experience. And personally, I love it when I'm getting abused or people are like having a go at you, trying to put you off your game because you're like, okay, this means something, and it's like I just love to prove them wrong. So it adds that extra element to it at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Benny, there's a bit of a conversation happening around Australian football at the moment, be it the A-League, be it NPL. I think we're always looking for ways that we can build the game, grow the game, evolve the game, and what that might look like. But I was interested to pick your brain on your experiences and coming from New Zealand and the way that New Zealand kind of views this setup between Australia and New Zealand. Of course, two new Kiwi teams in the A-League. Of course, multiple NPL leagues across Australia. First of all, give us a bit of a snapshot on the structure of New Zealand football to begin with, domestically.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously there's two islands in New Zealand. You got, three, but you got the north and the south. Yep. So they've got a regional level to start off with. You play in a South Island league, and then there's a central league, which is Wellington and the central region, and then there's a northern league, which is the Auckland teams. So basically, these play in separate regional competitions, round robin, home and away, and kind of
how many teams in each league?
Oh, it varies. It's I think northern's like 12 or 13, and then central's 10, and southern's 10, something like that. Yeah. So you play in those different competitions. The top two from the South Island, the top four from Central, plus the Wellington Phoenix Academy, and the top four from the Northern region at the end of the season come into a national league. So then they play a New Zealand National League with the best teams from each and compete for the New Zealand Cup. Yeah, essentially. Okay. So yeah, it's actually a really, really good thing where at the end of the season you've got those who are competing for that level. And I think now with those two A-League teams, it actually provides a base for them to recruit locally, which is quite incredible. And it's something that gives these young players in New Zealand, young, old, whoever it may be, it gives them that next step to be like, you know what, if I'm here and I do well, I can actually be in the shop window to maybe progress in my career. Where if you were to ask me the same question when I was 21, I'd say, no, I've got to go to Melbourne. I've got to go play NPL in Australia to then make the next step. That's the next step. That's the next level to then go into the A-League or to A-League to Asia, to wherever it may be. So the level of competition in Australia has always been, from New Zealand perspective, stronger and much better and much more competitive, because I think the amount of players, the pool of players that it comes from. Now I'm actually, you know what, I'm not leaning more back home in terms of quality, but I think it's a lot more comparable of what the quality is now. We've got a lot of good players coming out of New Zealand that I think is really underrated, and we've just had one of our best players, Marko Stamenic, just signed for Nottingham Forest and just straight on loan to Olympiakos in Greece. He's been at Red Star Belgrade. We've got a lot of boys who are moving over to Europe. And some of these lads have come from elite academies as well that I've been lucky to be a part of. And I think it's just going to get better and better, to be honest. And we're going to see that New Zealand's going to grow, which is something for me I'm extremely proud of and something I'm looking forward to watching. But at the same time, Australia's got those numbers, got that quality, and like you see it in Western Australia. You've got some phenomenal players that are playing for your national team. We just had the conversation with Ali. Phenomenal talent, and obviously going to progress through his career, which is something exciting at the same time. But there's other players that have developed from here, and then you've got the competition on the other side, on the coast, and Sydney and Melbourne, that are extremely strong too.
It is interesting on how we look at it, and I wasn't aware that it was obviously there was three teams, but as you suggest there, I mean, having that extra or that new professional pathway, that's going to be a game changer for the Kiwis. Big time. It gives a kid, right, the opportunity to dream. It gives them right on their doorstep that opportunity to say, you know what, I can see these kids
kids. I want to say kids, but like the younger lads. I think six lads signed a scholarship contract to Auckland FC in the A League that are around the ages from 18 to 21. And for boys to be competing against that and see their mates or see people they know get those opportunities, the Phoenix have done a great job, right? The amount of kids that they've progressed through their academy into that first team and then in reaching the semi-finals last year was phenomenal too. So to have that natural pathway for Kiwis is wicked. And I think that if this goes well, I don't see why there's no reason where even Christchurch or Queenstown in the next 5 to 10 years will have another A-League side as well. So it'd be very interesting. Obviously, someone might have to come in with their checkbook and open that up. But I think New Zealand football's going to grow quickly.
I mean, across the years, we've seen plenty of success, but we've also seen plenty of failures within New Zealand football. I mean, I remember the old Auckland Kings, and then it was the Football Kings, and then it was, they came and go. They as quickly as they went as quickly as they came, I should say. Is Auckland the heartland of football, do you feel? I mean, you've got Auckland City. I mean, they've always been the front runner. They pretty much get a straight ticket to the Club World Cup every year. But, I mean, where are the other hot spots for football around NZ? Of course, you've got to battle with your rugby heartlands and things like that.
Yeah, big time. Wellington, obviously with the Wellington Phoenix, is the second. There's 2 academies based in Wellington, the Ole Football Academy and Wellington Phoenix Academy, that are 2 of the best in the country. Auckland is, by heart and heart, the heart of football in New Zealand. It was almost, I'm going to sound biased and things here because I'm a southerner. There's not too many opportunities down south for kids to progress. I say that, but like the likes of Finn Sermon, who played in the Phoenix, he's a Christchurch boy too. But growing up, it was always a bias where kids in Auckland would almost have a show-in because all of the camps would be, for New Zealand football, would be up in Auckland and they'd be hosted there. So the amount of kids in that shop window was right there to be selected, whereas the kids down south didn't get the opportunity to be in front of the selectors, in front of New Zealand football, etc., etc. So,
well, we know that feeling quite well because I think we experienced a little bit of that over here in Western Australia. That we feel that sometimes our own homegrown talent maybe doesn't get the opportunities to progress to as high as what they could because they're not primarily in that shop window. I mean, I've heard of players being told, hey, if you want to go to that next level, you need to move over east, which I think is a real indictment on our game. Unfortunately. There's a big conversation happening around what needs to happen to Australian and New Zealand football. I think essentially from my perspective, and I've harped on about this for a while, we've really got to set ourselves a goal between New Zealand football and Australian football to be able to have a legitimate kind of football system with legitimate pathways that you can basically, like a ladder, climb yourself up to as high as you can go. How do you see that progressing, and what do you feel as a player will enhance that?
Well, there's this talk of the second division, right? Yeah. And that's happening in Australian football. And I think it's been talked about for 5+ years, but it hasn't really ever happened. And I can't make any question. I can't make any queries on it, any questions. I don't know. I don't know what the processes are like. I just think that having another professional level for people to aim at, to have that aspiration and see it directly is very important. To have another competition, whether that goes to promotion relegation with the A-League, I don't know. I think that the level of competition with the A-League is good, and there's some seriously talented players all throughout. I don't think it gets as much exposure that it should. Like, you had the Central Coast Mariners win the Asian
the treble, essentially.
the treble, right? Yeah. No one heard about them winning that competition. Yeah. Like, it was nowhere to be seen on any media, and I just don't think that actually gives the clubs the pathways and those opportunities like more of a voice, right? Yeah. Like, maybe the Central Coast fans heard about it, maybe there was a little bit about it in the local newspaper, but like, to not even hear about it over here when Australia can compete in the Asian League itself and the Asian Cup, like, to have that as a nation.
Yeah.
But then you got to see your clubs do it at the same time. So there are opportunities there, and I think that just as I was saying, like with that second division, having more pathways for players is key. So then one thing you've got your talent run in front of you at home, but then also the more quality players you have here, I think the more eyes are going to get put on Australian football, New Zealand football, and then allow those players. So it's not for New Zealand, for example, it's not just the Chris Wood, the Marco Stamenic, or the Winston Reid that you see playing overseas. Now you start to see, okay, there's diamonds there. We need to dig into that even more and get them overseas and have these opportunities. So yeah, I think that's only good things can come from it, right?
Do you feel, obviously there's the conversation around Oceania and New Zealand's place in it. We had to have that conversation here in Australia because it wasn't conducive to Australia steadily progressing to where they are now. You'd have to go up against Vanuatu and these kind of countries, and no disrespect to them, but they're not on the same level as far as their football journey. And then we'd have to go up against Uruguay or Argentina or someone like that. So, I mean, you went from 0 to 100 in
real quick
weeks,
Yeah.
which, as I said, it wasn't conducive to having a slow and steady kind of progression. Does New Zealand need to have that conversation?
I don't know. You battle with that, right? Because you look at the population comparison of Australia and New Zealand, and so we've got 6 million people of a pool of players to potentially select from. So that's naturally lower. Then if you move into the Asian competition and that way of trying to be make World Cups and go through that qualifying, I don't know, honestly. I don't think I can weigh too heavy of an opinion on it because we do struggle to qualify, and obviously in 2010 we did. But then from there, you go through different paths. I remember watching New Zealand versus Mexico, and you've got a home and away league there, and I was like, well, you kind of know what's going to happen. You often hope and cross your fingers for a miracle, but at the same time, I think it ended up being like 8-2, 9-2 on aggregate. So it's like it makes it extremely tough. But like saying that, we had Danny Hay here, right? And they were that close, honestly, playing Costa Rica in the qualifiers and losing 1-0 in a game where New Zealand genuinely dominated the game. It's like we're almost it's almost there. We're almost on that level. So I think that we're in a really good place where we're going to keep getting better. I think this new team in Auckland will help that too. But yeah, in terms of qualifying, I don't know.
Benny, it's been a heavy week, so I thought we might have a bit of fun. We'll get Glenn Hutcheson on in a quick second, but I thought we might just play a quick game of underrated, overrated.
All right.
And I put this to you before we went on air, and you went, you know what, let's have a bit of a crack with that. All right. So, mate, you're a big, hard defender. So I want you to tell me, and you have to give me a little bit of a reasoning behind some of these, underrated or overrated are shin pads?
Oh. Underrated.
Underrated?
Yeah.
Go on.
They serve a purpose.
Yeah.
They're there.
Do you wear the little micros?
No, I just wear a normal size. I think players who do the micro shin pads, it's for aesthetics only. Until you get crunched in the shin.
Yeah. And then you know about it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Remember the big ones you used to wear as a junior? The big,
I think
it was like a roof tile.
I think there are a lot of kids and juniors made to train in shin pads.
Yeah.
I think it's understandable, but at the same time, I hate training in shin pads.
Is that right?
It's just too much money on tape.
Are you a sock cutter?
Yeah.
You're a sock cutter?
Big time. Yeah.
You must go through a stack of socks.
Nah, I'm all right. I'm okay.
You got a sponsorship?
No, yeah, fly grip socks. Yeah. Shout out to the boys back home. Honestly, the best quality ones.
We're
I've
after a
seen.
sponsor, so if you want to organise that for us, that'd be great.
Yeah, we clip this. I'll tell you what, I got some contacts.
Underrated or overrated? Home ground advantage.
Underrated. Yeah.
Just as far as familiarity, or is it the home crowd and just comfort and everything else?
Yeah, big time. I think that the bigger clubs you go to, having that okay, let's do this, for example, Perth Glory versus Wellington Phoenix, the distance derby.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's underrated because the travel, etc. So
What about in local leagues? I mean, you're not having to travel too far.
familiarity of pitch is important for sure. Like having the size of DG here, and then when we played in the cup, we went to Wanneroo away.
Yeah.
And they legitimately made it the size of a shoebox and brought the pitch right in.
Yeah.
And it's like that's for their advantage.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think it's underrated.
Bit of dark arts in the local leagues, mate.
Big time.
Underrated, overrated VAR as a defender. Are you a fan?
I can't say I'm a fan, but it serves its purpose and it does make the game clear.
Do we need to separate the concept of VAR and the way it's implemented? Because I sometimes feel it's a separate conversation.
Yeah, like I mean, we've talked about the art of defending and how skillful it is, and I think that some of the game is definitely taken away in terms of physicality. You could say imposing yourself by making tough challenges, especially at the highest level, and like you can't get away with anything. So I think it's overrated.
Overrated VAR. There you go. Cristiano Ronaldo, underrated, overrated.
He's
Go on.
damn man, this is
Go on.
this is underrated.
Underrated.
Yeah, I think that too many people don't like him based on his persona and his character, like in social media and things like that.
Yeah.
You take him as an athlete, as a footballer, as a human. He's underrated big time.
All right, last one. International football, underrated, overrated?
Underrated.
Underrated?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I think in Australia and New Zealand, we love international football. But I mean, if you go to England and they just go, oh, it's bloody England again, I'd rather get back to
but then look at them in
Liverpool,
the Euros.
Man United, especially Liverpool.
Yeah, but then look at them in the Euros. Like, they haven't even got through the group stage and it's like it's coming home. So, like, I mean...
That's just the Poms for you.
Yeah,
mate, though,
no comment. Honestly, no comment. Don't want to get involved. People, like... So, this is the thing about football. I get asked all the time, who do I support? Right? I'm like, as a kid, I would have said Chelsea growing up.
Yeah.
For sure. These days, just let me watch good football. I just want to see a team with courage, take the ball everywhere, play, and then just absolutely dominate. The teams who work hard, run hard, and play good football, it's all I want to watch. So it doesn't matter what league it is. That's all I need.
First of all, before we move on, why Chelsea?
First football kit I got given as a kid.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's got to be child abuse somewhere along the way. Benny, mate, we'll take a quick break. We're going to have a special guest after this. Glenn Hutcheson's going to join us and we'll have him in the hot seat. Welcome back to the Perth SC Podcast. Blayne, Treadgold, Ben, Stroud. Benny, we said a little bit earlier on, it's the people that make a good football club and a familiar face around the club, whether it's on the gate, whether it's on the pitch, wearing his fluoro, whether it's running and chasing balls around because, Benny, you've put one over the top of the bar by about 30-odd yards like a rugby player. Glenn Hutcheson's with us. G'day, mate.
G'day, Blayne. G'day, Ben.
I am innocent here. I swear every time, but no, so good to have you on the podcast. Yeah, really looking forward to hearing more of your story and your involvement in the club.
Well, tell us a little bit about it, Glenn, because you hold and you have held many different roles and positions here at Perth SC, mate. So, take us through a few of them.
I guess, I've been a bit of a jack of all trades here. I've done some coaching. I think I've been a team manager before in the junior setup as well. Assistant coach to many much better coaches than me. And then I've come in as treasurer in a stint between 2012 and 2014. And during that time, I just like getting down pitch side. So the match official role is pretty good as well. Like keeping those Floreat supporters on the other side of the fence where they belong. And I've always done stints on the gate as well. Being treasurer, I guess that's a bit of a backup for that role when the gate attendant can't make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much help out wherever I need to.
General dog's body.
Yeah, I guess I've done that at lots of clubs I've been involved with.
Take us through your story, because I kind of said a little bit of mine earlier on, but you came from a similar kind of upbringing and then were converted to the round game in a way. Take us through that.
Yes, so I've played Aussie rules, and yeah, I guess as a young guy I was a diehard Aussie rules supporter, player, up until my mid-20s, and then married into an Italian family.
Oof.
So my wife's family have got a long history with the club.
Yep.
And extended family, Uncle Sergio, he was in the inaugural 1948 team here.
Wow.
So, my brothers-in-law all played here. My wife's mother was on the ladies' committee for a long time, helping out in the canteen, all those type of things, cooking meals for the players on Thursday nights, all those things that go on at the club and have made the club, what it is today, and so great, those traditions that we try and keep up now. So I got dragged into a soccer family, I guess, not dragged into it. Obviously, I wanted to be involved, and I've loved it ever since.
Things would have been a hell of a lot different when you first walked into the club. What year are we talking here when you first probably came down to Doreen Gardens?
Yeah, well, I probably mid-2000s, early in the 2000s, 2004, 5 maybe. Thinking I first came down here, got my kids involved. So the kids had grown up watching Perth Glory from when they were babies. We used to take them along to the games. So we were all, early supporters of the Perth Glory.
Yep.
Gary Morocchi coaching there, being a family friend. So we started supporting right from year one. So my kids sort of never really interested in playing Aussie rules, always wanted to play soccer. So it was the decision to get them down here. Played juniors here, got involved in coaching some junior teams here. And it grew from there.
Well, in that time, you would have seen some fantastic teams and some fantastic players. And who are the standouts to some of the days and some of the memories as well? Yeah,
I was lucky enough that started bringing my sons down here in the end of the Graham Normanton era. And I really saw some of what I guess there's many great teams and many great eras at this club, but people do talk about that era. Graham's era and the lads he had in that team as being one of the best. Just go through some of the names playing then. David Onoforo, Antonio Nalieri. Great defenders like Sean Kilkenny and Trent Kay, Craig Simpson, strong guys. The midfielders, Andreas Oliveira, Dom Di Felice, Robbie Puka, Greg Charland on the wing, not the Italian background like some of the other names I just said, but a real outstanding winger, fast, big. Ian McMurray, similar type of player, I guess.
Sure.
Andrea Jukic, when he was young here, played some great games. And Ben, someone that you've come up against, a young Liam Boland was playing at Perth Soccer Club when I was, first involved back in those days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Great team.
Some seriously phenomenal names in there. I'm very curious about the junior side of things. So being a parent of kids who are playing in the club, I notice one thing about parents over here in WA especially is that they're super passionate on the sidelines. Something that Perth here is actually quite controlled at, and they've got good parents who are very supportive. Tell me, what was the good thing about having kids involved at the club from an early age?
Look, I had a lot to learn about soccer, football as we should call it now. So I guess being involved here at Perth, I had really good mentors like that, especially in the coaching thing. So you do your coaching badges with Football West, but they also always had structured coaching days for Perth Soccer Club coaches. I guess being a big club, there's always enough coaches like that to do that. So you're learning from the other coaches around the club. Have a full sort of Coach the Coaches Day organised within the club. So things like that were very good. When you talk about the passion on the sidelines, I think you must have been talking to some people around the club, maybe gave you a bit of a hint about my early days. I probably wasn't the
no inside scoops here. No inside
best
scoops
on that. Again, you learn from people around you and see how other people behave. So maybe my days watching Normo weren't the best guidance for that. But yeah, there's plenty of other people that I learnt from and saw that they were a lot calmer, not any less passionate, but just managed to keep it inside. So I do think I got that out of my coaching over the years, which was a good thing.
Glenn, I wanted to just talk about, I guess, some of the roles that you've had a little bit further. Like you look after the finances, essentially. You are the treasurer here, I understand.
Yes, yeah. Well, that sort of happens when you get known around the club. People find out that you're an accountant, and accountants always ask to become treasurer.
Yep.
So yeah, I was coming along to games here, and yeah, I think it was Joe Italiano who was the president back at the time, in his stint as president through that Graham Normanton era. And Joe didn't know me at all. A lot of the other people around that I was playing some masters with knew me. So Joe's sort of like, who's this guy that keeps coming along, brings his kids along to watch these games, and comes up to me one day and says he's heard I'm an accountant and he needs an accountant on the committee. So I had a chat to Joe, and I developed a long time friendship with Joe from that day, and was happy to help out. And as I said, met lots of people and lots of friends through the club. So no regrets. Loved every minute of it.
Absolutely. And I was just going to start to, gather some of your thoughts on where you feel the club's at the moment, both on and off the field.
Okay, well, obviously we're not doing well in the men's.
Yep.
As you know, we're a proud club and always have had a lot of success. So nobody's got patience, I guess, for rebuilding times. It's a word we don't tend to use much around Perth Soccer Club when we think we're going through a rebuilding. But I guess everybody has to be honest about the setbacks we've had this year. So, we just leave it up to the coaching staff, the football operations staff and the players to do their best and carry on that history. I'm very excited about the women's side of football at the moment. As you know, I've developed a bit of a passion for that, and sort of when I came back here as my second stint as treasurer, I was very thrilled to see that we had a full women's program established since I'd been at the club the first time. So that was really new to me. Hadn't been involved with women's football before. I could see that that they needed a little bit more support. The people generally are still tending to go to watch all our men's games, but the support at the women's games is a little bit less. So I've got down to women's games and really enjoying that, enjoying the football standard. It's incredible. I really wasn't much of a watcher of women's football before that. But I've been really, really, I guess you'd say surprised, but really impressed more than anything of the quality of women's football in WA. Obviously, Perth Red Star have had a good setup for a long time, but we're now we've got to a level where we're competing with them, challenging with them. Balcatta's developed a good team. You might say from pinching Perth's players. But
don't mention the war.
Subiaco have got a team that's capable of upsetting those top three teams as well that are vying for the championship this year. So
Frio's in the mix too.
Yeah. Sorry, I think I was meaning Fremantle then, but Subiaco definitely got a side that's building well. Even UWA come into it this year, and they're not an easy beat team. So the era of WA's football being easy beats in some easy beat teams in WA women's football is over, I think. In that, to see teams like UWA come into the competition for the first year, and although they're not getting a lot of wins, they're not getting beaten by big margins. I watched them play the Perth game a few weeks ago, and they lost a player through a send-off early in the game, but still managed to hold a very good defensive shape and keep the score respectable.
Yeah, it's only going to get bigger, the women's game, and obviously with the flurry of interest after the World Cup, I mean, I think Football West is reporting about a 20% growth across the women's game as far as young girls that want to get involved. So that can only be a positive. Glenn, just before we let you go, big weekend. We've got the men against Floreat on Friday night. We've got the women against Mum FC on Saturday, as well as the under-21s involved, the 18s and the 20s men. And then we've got a big cup game, semi-final of the Women's Cup happening on Tuesday against Fremantle City. So, there's going to be a bit happening across the next week.
Yes, so our Friday night games. So big thing we've tried this year. Hopefully we get lots of people down there for the big Perth Floreat game. Always a great rivalry. And, it was something that we thought as a committee that we'd try these Friday night games and see what the attendance was like. It seems to be fairly successful so far. We've got a couple in the middle of winter coming up. So this is the real test for it, I guess, if people come out on a cold Friday night. So get down here. There's good indoor viewing area at Dorrien Gardens. So hopefully we'll get lots of people down here, whether the night's too chilly or not.
Yep.
The rest of the games followed up with our under 18s and 21s and the women's games on the Saturday to make for a sort of a super Saturday of football without the men's team topping it off though. Still a great day of football. So I'll be here for both of them, and then back here, as you say, on Tuesday night for what shapes to be a danger game for Perth. We had trouble with Fremantle last time down at Fremantle in that women's game. So we really need to put in a big effort and get the progression in the cup.
Yeah, love to get through to that final, and very much looking forward to all the matches across the weekend. Glenn, thanks very much, mate. We'll let you go, but been a pleasure to have a bit of a chat with you.
You're very welcome.
Last part of the Perth Soccer Club podcast for episode 7. Big thank you to Glenn Hutcheson who joined us. Big thank you to him for all his hard work around the club. There's a lot of unsung heroes when we come in, Benny, and just, do a bit of podcasting, and there's always something going on, whether it's Fiona in the office making sure we all get paid, or whether it's Margaret or Gianluca or any one of the young fellas that come through or do a little bit of work around the place.
Yeah, 100%. And what a guy, what a character at the same time.
Yep.
So, that was a wicked conversation. And, as you said, so many people here who have got such important roles, and to be able to highlight that at the same time, I think it's very important for people to understand then what makes a good club like this tick.
Absolutely. And I mean, there'd be players and, coming through the juniors that just rock up and just think it all happens. And unfortunately, it's not the way. There is a fair few hardworking volunteers and people around the club who certainly put in plenty so we can keep the Azzurri flag flying very, very high. Benny, talking about flying the flag, you'll be doing exactly that this weekend. It'll be Friday night at 7 p.m. against Floreat. Second time for the year that we've played them. They're on our turf now. Huge opportunity once again.
Friday Night Lights, so good. Such a stage will be set. Yeah, and look, it's every game's a big game, and the reality is we can just take it one at a time. So, that's next up on the list, and let's get out there and honestly get the boys together. I think having a good crowd and some good voice to really back the lads will be big. So, looking forward to it tomorrow. Yeah,
Friday night under lights at Dorrien Gardens, Perth Soccer Club taking on Floreat. The battle of the city of Vincent, of course, our noisy neighbours down the road there. Floreat Athena Football Club. Also on Saturday, well, a bit of a Super Saturday, as Glenn alluded to, we'll have the 18s men up against Floreat, the 20s men up against Floreat, the 21s women up against Mum FC, and then the senior women up against Mum FC. So, geez, if you're not going to get out on the Friday, make sure you get down here on the Saturday and you'll get an absolute football feast.
100%. It'll be a great day for it. And look, back-to-back games. Hopefully people get out in numbers. Take your pick what games you want to come to. And look, as we said here, the club's got some seriously good inside viewing at the same time. So if it's a cold day, Saturday here in Perth, there's still opportunities for people to stay warm and watch some good football.
I'm just hoping there's some homemade lasagna on the cards across the weekend because it's pretty damn good.
The club does good food. That's something that they do well is very good food. So, hopefully.
Also, just a little bit of a extended reminder, Women's Cup happening Tuesday. It is the semi-final. It is up against Fremantle City, a shot to go to the big one.
Yeah, 100%. And like we kind of touched on it as well. And may have been a little bit of a trip up against Freo last time in the league. So look, the girls will be looking for a bit of revenge, I'd say, and looking forward to that game. It'll be a cracker. Semi-final. What more can you ask for?
Absolutely. Looking forward to that Tuesday. Huge weekend to come. Benny, all the best to you and the guys. All the best to the women, the 18s, the 20s, the juniors, everyone that's got a game across the weekend. We'll wrap things up there and come on, the Azzurri.